Everyone's joining in. Don't forget to say hi in the chat if you're joining us today. We've got the chat box and the Q&A box in your toolbar across the bottom of your screen, or if you're coming through Facebook Live, I think it's the chat box, if I have remembered that correctly. We'll get going in a minute or two after everyone's had a chance to come in. I know if your day is anything like mine, it's back-to-back Zoom calls with very little break between everything, and by the end of the day you've knocked up another 20 calls, which is quite extraordinary in this age. It's a lot of fun though, seeing everyone and seeing a little bit into everyone's lives a little bit, connecting in different ways. But we'll get going in half a minute, I think. Don't know about your weather. I always give a tiny little weather report as we head in this afternoon. It's really cool and cloudy here in Sydney, so I'm not quite sure where you're coming and joining us from today, but it's very wintry, which is quite beautiful. But I think
maybe people could let us know where they're coming in from.
Yeah, absolutely. That's often the case in our little chat box down the bottom, which is wonderful to see some of our regular guests and friends coming back to say hello. So I think we'll kick off. Hello everyone, my name is Celia Pavelev and I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications here at the Australia Council for the Arts. And after a little week's break, I'm back as your virtual MC again, sharing insights into our wonderful industry, sector, community and world. I'd like to acknowledge the Camaragal peoples, the traditional owners of the land from which I'm coming to you from today. I'd also like to acknowledge the many nations throughout Australia that we're gathering from here online to talk about cultures, platforms and adapting digitally in COVID-19. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present and acknowledge all First Nations peoples present and online in this session. This is our second last Think Inside the Square session. It's hard to believe, but it's the 14th in our series here on a Tuesday at 2 p.m, zoomed through Facebook, a Zoom meeting, sorry, through Facebook Live. So just a tiny little bit of housekeeping that I know you're all very, very familiar with. If you have any questions, don't forget to post them throughout the session in the Q&A box or the chat box. Closed captions are also available through Zoom by clicking on the closed caption icon in the bottom menu bar. And today's session is also being translated through Auslan with Florissa and David, who are joining us for the day. Our panelist this week is Laurel Papworth, a social media mentor, strategist and trainer. Laurel was named by Forbes magazine in the top 50 social media influencers globally, and Marketing magazine named her head of industry for social media. Author of Social Media Revenue, Laurel's consulted globally, including with Singapore government and the Middle East Broadcasting, and in Australia with UNHCR, Westpac, Sony, local, state and federal governments, including at Parliament House in Canberra. So from social distancing to social media, Laurel's here to tell us about the user journey. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I forgot I did all those things. So what we're going to look at today is how social media kind of works with the algorithm. And I want to focus on three elements: the right people and the right content and the right time. And without those three, you're basically swimming against the algorithm. So even if people have subscribed to you, like subscribing to a newsletter, I guess, but they follow you, they like your page, or they connect to you if you're talking about LinkedIn, the algorithm looks at how they engage with you, and then you're given 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 strikes, and then you're out. They won't show your content to that person again without a really good reason for doing so. A lot of people say to me that social media only works if you buy ads. That's absolutely not true. In fact, we have some pages with such high engagement that when we buy an ad, our engagement diminishes. And it's because the algorithm, which also looks after ads, has learnt that bought attention is because the content is boring and therefore not as good as the earned attention. So if we have a page that has earned a lot of attention and a lot of engagement, buying the ads can actually damage that page, the optimization of that page. Surprising, I know, but the algorithm is really there for, well, for a number of reasons. Number two is to sell ads, but number one is to keep eyeballs. Because if they don't have the eyeballs, they can't sell the ads. People won't see the ads, therefore they can't sell them. So the premium thing for any algorithm, Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, is to keep you on the platform instead of going off and doing some work. So to keep you addicted to Facebook, okay? So that's how it works. So the first thing I want to do is just go quickly through the algorithm so that we understand some of the data sets, and I'll share this in a moment. Let me just view presentation. This is only one slide. So we share this one. And I just need a confirmation from people that they can see a slide which says FBO newsfeed. Yes, all good. Thank you so much. So FBO is me being a smarty pants because people have always used the term SEO, search engine optimization, which is about optimizing content on your website so that Google search picks it up. That's what SEO is. So I thought FBO, Facebook optimization, would work for the Facebook newsfeed. This also applies to SMO, social media optimization, which can cover a multitude of different things, but really most algorithms work this way. So Facebook will show you around 20 to 60 articles, pieces of content out of around 1,500 updates based off everything that you like or that you've connected to. So there are, 50 million Facebook pages that you've liked. There's a whole bunch of groups, I live in the Blue Mountains, the local Blue Mountains group, or maybe you like bicycles, so you join a cycling group, those sort of things. So out of the events, groups, pages, friends, everything, there's about 1,500 updates. And when that bucket's full, Facebook then chooses 20 to 60 for you to see in the news feed. So then my question's always been, how do we know what those 20 to 60 are? And how can I optimize what I do to make sure I'm in that news feed and I'm not in the other bucket which people don't see? And it's personalized. Each person has their own news feed. So the first thing that we do is we look at something called the core audience or the psychographic. And the psychographic is how the algorithm looks at people, and it's not demographics. It's not your typical film release of the 4 quadrants, male, female, over 35, under 35, anything like that. It's a lot more intense. It's like Sally likes yoga and Pilates. She shops at Lululemon and she does ballet classes, and she's 28 and she's single and she's got disposable income. There's a lot that goes into a psychographic, and I'll show you an example of one that Facebook uses in a moment. Facebook also has lexicon, which looks at keywords. So keywords are in clusters. So yoga, Pilates, meditation, they all make up a cluster that a particular type of psychographic likes. Another psychographic might be footy and cricket and boxing. I don't know. Anyway, you get the general idea. They belong to particular types of people. The social graph is the friends score. So Facebook scores your friends, and it knows that your bestest best friend, you always talk to them on Facebook, but your auntie who lives overseas, you don't talk to her very often. So her stuff moves out of the news feed and your bestest friend stuff comes in at the top. And the same thing happens with pages. If your friends are all in arts and they're all sharing a piece of content, maybe there's some funding or something going on, then you will more likely see that if you're in the arts community. But somebody who's in the footy community won't. By the way, you can like football and arts. I'm just pointing out how the psychographic splits people up. Gamification is how to get an engaged audience. That's a whole session in and of itself, but some of the top pages have in their programming guide a whole lot of gamification key points. And gamification can move the user through different kinds of journeys. For instance, in gamification, we use the terms Alice and Dorothy. So Dorothy likes to follow the yellow brick road, which means you have to have a funnel that the user follows, that they can clearly see the road that they're traveling. Alice are much more maybe creative and exploratory, and they roam and they like to find different things out for themselves. The lookalike audience, I just want to point out, because there's lots of different audiences that the algorithms use, and all of them have a lookalike audience, and it's the similar stranger. So the algorithm tries to find people who look like the target audience in your page or on your channel. So if you have a whole lot of people, for instance, in arts on your channel, it will go off and find other people. They don't have to be FOAF. So FOAF is friend of a friend. Developer's term. Now you're a developer. They just have to meet a lot of the same key points that the core audience, the psychographic, do. I don't know, watch this TV show and watch this on Netflix, and all of this data is pulled together by the platforms through third-party partners, which we'll get to in a second. Deep text and deep face, Google's is called Deep Mind. This is an artificial intelligence, the matrix, and it's doing behavioral analysis. So it's looking at behaviors, and it looks at all the people in the past who undertook certain behaviors, and then it guesses, but with lots and lots and lots and lots of big data, what is likely to happen with you. So one of the predictions that Facebook says they can make, Facebook, Instagram, is that they know 24 days before you know that you're going into a relationship, and presumably before the other person knows as well. And it's because there are certain behaviors that you do, probably stalking them online, but you get the general idea. Another one is Facebook and Instagram, and the platforms are trying to it's behavioral analysis. When you will need an Uber, and then put the ad up for you to take an Uber. And given that mobile phones have a geo proximity data set, that simply means that if you and all your mates are at a pub and then all the phones start to leave and go home, then it's pretty easy to make a behavioral indicator there that, oh, it's time that Laurel put that margarita down and got herself a taxi and went home. No, I want to stay. Where's the party? You don't have to laugh at my jokes. I'll just do it on my own. Another thing the algorithm does is it splits these psychographics up into different content, what they call story types. There are some people who are visual, and they much prefer a visual medium. So they like to watch videos, they like to look at images, and if something's out in the image, they'll notice it. I can always tell visual story types because they comment on the bouquet in the background of my videos, whereas I'm actually a text story type. So I will click a link and read something before I watch a video on it. And people who are more prone to images and videos get more images and videos in their feed. And people who like to read lots of words get more text. They're a smaller group. Engineers tend to be text story types. So do lawyers, accountants, researchers of certain kinds, journalists, writers, publishers love words. They're wordsmiths. So therefore they appreciate a well-written, well-constructed post. Exception with journalists are entertainment journalists and arts journalists, because many of them are working in a visual medium, so they're able to translate backwards and forwards between the two. And really anybody with communication skills uses both, but there are just there's a natural language that we head towards. And if about 82% of the population are visual and the rest are text, you need to decide which is your audience. If you're writing, if you're creating content for writers, publishers, journalists, wordsmiths, skip the videos, head towards content. The reason for that is the algorithm removes the videos and images out of text story type feeds and removes text out of the video, people's feeds, and videos and images out of the text story type feeds. I don't get very much in the way of videos at all. The last act of 5024 answers the question how often you should post. And this is a data set in the algorithm which says, if Laurel interacted with your content in her last 50 interactions in the last 24 hours, it's also called the wedding data set. If I interact with your wedding in the morning, then I should see it for the next 24 hours. I should see more about the wedding. I should see more about the baby. I should see more about the graduation, the engagement, whatever it is that's going on in your life, whatever drama's going on, I will see more of it because the interaction or engagement is high for the next 24 hours. So you need to be posting, wait for it, at least twice a day. Now, when you are posting, it doesn't have to be me media. It doesn't have to be content that you create. It can be content that you share. So anonymous attendee, I recognize you, asked, do Instagram and Facebook share the same algorithm? Yes, they do. The head of Facebook's algorithm is a gentleman by the name of Adam Mosseri, and you can follow him on Twitter, strangely enough. And he moved from the head of Facebook to Instagram's newsfeed to bring the data sets together. And now that version 5 of Facebook is rolling out, this new version that you're starting to see, there's a lot of back-end changes as well as that dark mode and the rest of it at the front end. Mark Zuckerberg said they're bringing Facebook and Instagram together with WhatsApp, and they're changing the whole news feed to mirror WhatsApp and Instagram first and foremost. So there's quite a lot of changes coming there. Last one on this, because you don't want to be staring at a PowerPoint screen, is rituals and memes. If you see something trending within the group, it doesn't have to be the Kim Kardashian breaking the internet thing. It just has to be, if there's new tax laws and accountants are excited about it, then I share content around the new tax laws to an accountant's subset group, because the algorithm is looking at keyword clusters, deep text and deep face. Deep text is not only behavioral analysis, but it's also object recognition. So it identifies people's faces in photos and videos. Also, if the Sydney Harbour Bridge is behind you, I have an on-air sign so that the algorithm is picking up that this is a live stream and suitable for people who like watching live feeds of things. But it's analysing what's going on. But another part of the algorithm is also picking up on what is news for the day. So let's have a look at what does a psychographic look like? So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Snapchat, not sure about TikTok, in Australia are using a third-party partner called Quantium. And Quantium collects all the data from credit cards, health insurance forms, mortgages, house insurance, buying a new car, Qantas frequent flyer points, everyday rewards points. Quantium's actually owned by Woolworths, and all the things Woolworths is involved in. I think Bupa Health is one of them. And they use the big data to segment, what they call segment, a psychographic. And this is what the platforms are using. Sometimes when you're on a platform, it will say, this data is coming to us through a third-party partner. And they're talking about what people read on News Corp or what they're engaging with on Instagram, Netflix. So whatever crappy shows you're watching on Netflix is all coming through Quantium. And then they split people up into these psychographics. So let me give you an example. Do the 2 posts a day apply per platform or across Facebook and Insta? Don't know. Should be per platform currently. Once they merge, I have no idea come back to me in about 6 months. I'm just going to say that the merger of Facebook and Instagram was supposed to take place in March, but then because 75% of Facebook and Instagram staff are contractors, and they would not allow them to work from home, they had to shelve the new platform. Google made changes and allowed their contractors to work from home, but Facebook didn't. All right, so let's have a look at golden days. This is not surveying. This isn't Quantium ringing you up when you're trying to cook dinner and you've got the kids and rah, rah, and this is going on, that's going on, and then you just give them any old answer just to get rid of them off the phone. This is actually being pulled in from credit cards and all kinds of information. So I'm not going to go through every single thing, but I would like you to see that you can't just say retirees are my psychographic. What we're looking at here is 10% of the population are called golden days. And they have both the time and the money to spend on extensive interests. They like arts, performing arts venues for the latest show. They've got high disposable income. We can see from the image the kind of lifestyle they're living. They often downsize their house. They know how to leverage their assets. And so they'll move into the city once they've retired. And they're a little older. They're 55 and 65. They've had senior positions and they fly Emirates, or they did when we used to fly, and they like the Sydney Opera House. None of this is guesswork. All of this is being reported in from credit card purchases and loyalty programs and all those kind of things. We can see they don't spend money on the ciggies, and they have hobbies of arts, theatres and boutique cinemas. So this is a very clear psychographic to me. I know this person. They're still, some of them are still working, but they tend to be on the board of companies and that sort of thing. If I go back to a different, this is why you can't just use senior citizens. I know I already said that, but I just like to reinforce it. If I go back to prudent nostalgia, these are basically retirees that are living paycheck to paycheck. They're budget retirees tending for their well-loved homes and cars and enjoy the simple things in life, which is marketing speak for they can't afford the others. They don't fly Emirates, but think Audi is on their list, News Corp, Miller's. So we can see the brands where they're spending their money. They're saying 5% of the population fit into prudent nostalgia, but there's many more segments that the algorithm uses. And again, it's not about what you do online, it's actually about how you spend your money. So people buy their cigarettes from Woolworths, they go to the counter there, and this particular group have a high ciggy spend, but are low on fast food. And then we'll see other psychographics are high on fast food. This data has been interesting. I've seen clubs, all kinds of clubs, but particularly those with pokies, use this data to identify that people were leaving the pokies at 11 p.m. at night, and they were buying shawarma, falafels and things like that from a local kebab place. And so the venues started to bring in kebabs at about 11 o'clock at night as like a light meal, and then they stayed playing pokies much longer once they did that. So being able to watch where people swipe their cards has been very interesting. And obviously there's a lot here, but this is how the platforms, whenever you see they're pulling in third-party data, this is where they pull it in. If you weren't aware of this kind of analysis going on, next time you fill in a form for your insurance or mortgage or health or whatever, if there's a box there which says that you acknowledge that they share the data that you're presenting with third-party partners, that's Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. In fact, Microsoft bought LinkedIn for the data, the combination of the data that people are putting up on LinkedIn plus their spending behaviors. So now that we know that the algorithm is very interested in these different kind of audiences, how can we leverage it? How can we maximize it? So if I'm on my Facebook page, and this is just a little training page, this I do live streams up on here, but mostly it's just for me to muck around with you guys. So when I'm on this page and I go to more and I go into my insights, what I tend to do is try and look at pages, and I want to see how many likes the page has, how many subscribers they have. And then I want to see if they're hitting a preferred audience. That's what, when Facebook analyzes your page, or Instagram analyzes your page, or LinkedIn analyzes your channel, it's what does the preferred audience look like? Is there a clear audience? So you can't have an everyone on your page. And I'll get to the issues around being a hall of brands in a minute, where you have lots of different type of events for lots of different audiences. But we can see here that Coca-Cola has 5.5 million likes and about 76,000 engagements, and that Red Bull has 48 million likes and 4.7. So they're at about 10% engagement. Now, engagement, we've already established people can subscribe, but it doesn't mean they see your stuff. Engagement means they saw it and they interacted with it. They liked it, they shared it, they commented on it, they paused. The algorithm does eye tracking. So if you stop and read something and then move on, the algorithm is able to pick up on that as well. If I look at some government departments, we can see here that this deputy mayor has 15,000 subscribers, but has 17,000 engagements. So actually, this is the sort of numbers that I'm often looking for. I want around 100 to 110% engagement. And then I know my reach, the people who saw it but didn't engage, is going to be a factor of about 10 times that. So about 100 something thousand people. So I'm just using the section in Facebook's Insights because it's the easiest one to set up to add pages. You can add pages for your competitors, your joint venture partners, government outfits, to just check and see how many likes they have versus their engagement for the last 7 days, and just keep an eye on it. This guy interests me. He's a politician with a very high engagement. You can always tell, by the way, when people buy likes, because they have 50 million likes and 3 people engaging. Don't buy likes. So if I click on him, you can do this with any page. It will tell me the most popular post. And this particular post on June the 30th had 23 comments and 4 shares and 345 likes or engagements. And then this one had, on the July the 5th, had 32 comments, 11 shares and 192 engagements. So when I mentioned before in the feed to look for rituals and memes, sometimes what I'm looking for is what's popular in this group. And is there something, I don't want to copy people. I can reshare this, but I don't necessarily want to copy them. But is there something here that I could riff off of, that people obviously like it? What could I do? And I'm guessing this is a Throwback Thursday or something. So that's fairly interesting. Thinking about international reach, do psychographic groups vary a lot in English-speaking countries? Yes, they do, massively. And as somebody who works with NBC Universal in America, even across America, it's very different. And just the way people live in general. So I lived in Singapore for a number of years, and you wouldn't build a retiree psychographic the same way. For instance, in Singapore, the government gives families a lot of support if they bring their aged parents into the home with them. So there's a lot of readopting back into the home, older members of the family. I wouldn't say that that is a typical behaviour here in Australia. Although given some of the issues with our aged care currently, maybe there's something there for our government to look at. That's an argument for another day. Right, so the next thing we need to do is, once we've split up our psychographics and we've made up a little sheet that says, you know, Sally likes edgy performances and steampunk, and I don't know, you know your psychographics better than I do. And she's young, and she likes those sort of I guess something that's a little bit more outre, a little bit more out there. And then we have Jim, who likes traditional operas and symphonies and things like that. And then we have, what else does the Opera House do? Something, but you have so many different audiences and different psychographics. You can't have one channel and put up one post for one and one post for the other, because the minute Sally doesn't interact with Jim's post and Jim doesn't interact with Sally's posts, the algorithm removes the content of both posts from similar people in the newsfeed. It just vanishes. So it's going to be much better to set up different channels for your different psychographics. The Department of Tourism does this very well. They use their Facebook page for grey nomads, glamping. They actually call them skis, spending the kids' inheritance. And it's about presenting a form of Australia that overseas retirees who travel overseas, I'm talking back when we did, would come to Australia. So that Facebook page is like a travel magazine. It's more on the luxury, high-end kind of thing. If you want to talk to backpackers coming to Australia, then you would more than likely use Instagram, something like that. And there'd be lots of how to backpack around Australia on $2 a day, and beach parties and full moon parties and Bondi Beach, you know, blah, 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 and hiring a van. And then if you have a corporate psychographic, the kind of people who you have to talk to who organize corporate events, then that, I thought that would be on LinkedIn, but they actually said they set up a separate Facebook page for corporates. So you can be a hall of brands, you just can't have one channel for everyone. And it makes sense. If you walk into a news agency and you go to the travel magazine section, do you pick up the luxury travel magazine or do you pick up the backpacker party magazine? Maybe you pick up both, but it's unusual. Normally you pick one or the other. Can you suggest the best way to develop psychographic profiles? Not surveys. And the only reason I'm saying not surveys is because people fib. If you ask somebody, do they smoke? They go, nah, don't smoke. And then in the back of their head, they're thinking, I only smoke socially. I only smoke on the weekends. I only smoke when I have a drink. I only have, and then the next thing you know, that Woolies counter every 5 minutes and they're smokers. So that's a different kind of psychographic. I would talk to customer service, or I would talk to the people who are front of house, because they can spot people when they walk in and you get to know them. Like, I know my audiences from my social media courses quite well, and I have senior level and I have entry level and I have women returning to the workforce after time away, and I have people with digital marketing skills who want to skill up, and I have people who run a small business and don't know anything, don't know what a funnel is. So I'm really aware that I can't talk to all of them about this, all the content all the time. It's got to be the right content to the right people at the right time. Time is moving on, and I know I'm racing through this at a rate of knots. Please keep asking questions in the Q&A. Get your money's worth. I've done lots and lots of social media over the last 20 years. In fact, I started back in the days when it was called online community management, and I used to run Sony's online communities for their games. And then I've also looked after Big Brother and Idol and Junior MasterChef. I've looked after NBC Universal. We've done social media campaigns for Pitch Perfect and Les Miserables and Fast and Furious, one of those speedy movies. And, you know, a lot of it's about, especially with Hollywood blockbusters, it's sometimes not about discriminating against an audience. I don't want to create digital apartheids. Oh, you wouldn't like this movie. You would. It's not about that. It's just knowing that you need different content to bring them into the room. So if two boys with, I don't know, skateboards under their arms, walk into a cinema, and Les Miserables is on in one cinema and Fast and Furious is on in another cinema. I'm pretty sure they don't say, hey, dude, let's go see Les Mis. I really, really hanging to see it. They just don't do that. So it's about, now it doesn't mean they won't see it, but I know where their preference would be. But I wouldn't naturally assume that, for instance, it's only young dudes would go and see Fast and Furious. I would also look at couples. I would look at the different types of dynamics that would bring people in, family movies, that sort of thing. And then I would just make sure that I told that story to that audience. Very few things in life only have one audience, but often one product can have many audiences. I need to be able to change the story around that user's journey into where we're taking them. So once I've done all of that stuff, I take each one of my audiences and I create a social media planner. I don't mind which tool you use, doesn't matter, you can use a piece of paper. In fact, I really love I actually have a physical diary, but I use color coding, otherwise I get confused. So I split my planner up into a content planner, which is articles. There's no call to action. It's just a behind the scenes look, or it's a fun series of how-tos or tutorials, edu marketing, edu social. If you want to do entertainment, jokes and stories and things like that, then that would go under content planning as well. I'm going to come to the two questions in the Q&A in a moment. The second one is your promotions planner. This is Facebook ads or Instagram ads, Instagram competitions, Instagram giveaways. If you want people to do a survey, ebooks, email signups, and yes, I'm aware I made a spelling error there. Don't tell me off. And it has a strong call to action. So whereas the content planner is building awareness, this is a call to action. We want you to click here and do this, buy tickets, whatever it is. Engagement planner is to reward and recognize the community members, to share content that they've created and between each other. Fan Photo Friday is very popular, where they take, I've worked for some entertainment venues and we do Fan Photo Friday, or we do Cine Sunday. And it's about showing what people got up to on Friday and Saturday night, but they submit it to us. The Fan Photo Friday, be careful with Tourism Australia, you have to sign a talent release form before they'll put you on their Fan Photo Friday list, because I guess they just don't want to be in a situation where you're handing in other people's content. A comment calendar, AMA, Ask Me Anything. In fact, this session is a perfect example of building a community around arts, and then every Tuesday running an Ask Me Anything, a town hall. There's lots of different terms for them. I have quite a few politicians I work with. We call them town halls. That webinar thing where people can ask me questions, we can have some sort of an engagement, and I can say, thanks, Ian Collis and Gemma Pepper, an anonymous attendee, for your questions, and we have some sort of an engagement. An influencer planner, featured contributor, so you can invite someone in from the community who is an influencer. Now, an influencer is anybody or any organization that has a channel and they already connect to the psychographic you want to connect to. So if I was trying to reach, I don't know, Golden Days maybe, I would be looking at what magazines do they buy? And they probably still do buy magazines, but it could be the ABC magazine or an art. Do they still have a magazine? The arts magazines, something like that. Maybe it's the weekend magazine in the Australian. So they're traditional media. So start with traditional media and then build out from there. What pages do they connect to? What groups do they connect to? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Instagram? Where are they? Do your research. If I don't want to build my own channel for each one of my audiences, and imagine that you're like Sony, you have all these different products. You have a PlayStation game, for kids that like okay, I like PlayStation, but for people who like playing PlayStation games, but you also have homewares and cooking microwaves for people who like cooking. That's not me. I'd rather play the PlayStation. And then you have tech and geek stuff like my cameras, and I've got a Sony camera and data projectors, you know, media units or data projectors, and kids playing PlayStation games and people who like cooking. They're not the same three audiences. So what you might decide is, I want one audience. I want the tech audience, but for the cooking stuff, I'm going to go find some cooking bloggers and bring them in to help me. How would you do this in the arts community? There's undoubtedly arts bloggers, arts vloggers who specialize in, I don't know, musical theatre or sculpture, or they visit galleries all the time, like when you could do that. But find those people and bring them in. Some of them the top ones will already be signed up, but not all of them. We also create design or PR teams with our influencers, and they help us co-create the sessions. This could be under engagement, where you ask the general community, or it could be where you ask people who are actually building their channels. They already have 10,000 followers or 100,000 followers or whatever it is. And so you want to work with them to help you create your events or create your things. Something that there's been quite a big shift in the corporate world is to bring in social media influencers to MC events, because they can Instagram around the event, they can live stream what they're seeing, they do little interviews, and they already have a large channel of people who are exactly the people who would like to be at that event. And it helps promote the next event and the next event. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, have a look at TED Talks and TEDx. Very, very good social media usage with those teams. We also ask influencers to tag and to share our stuff. We tag and share their stuff, and then it brings everybody together. I remember we did a campaign for Les Mis, actually, and we brought the fashion Instagrammers in and created a relationship with them around the fashion that was inside, was the costumes for that movie. And then the movie went on to win an Oscar for costumes, and that there was a lot. It changed the whole catwalk for the next season because of the amount of content that was being placed out there by fashion Instagrammers into their fashion accounts. Moving on, memory planner. Do you utilize the top fan audience on Facebook? Yes, if that top fan is exhibiting the behaviors that we want modeled. Look, if somebody's spamming thank you, thank you, thank you, that's not quality content. They shouldn't be a top fan, so we don't utilize it. But if they are really giving excellent engagement, then we will. And I would rather do it with a whole post, I don't know. Celia has been a wonderful contributor to the community this month, and we want to profile her. So here's a little bit of information about Celia. Celia, well done. Lucky Celia. Rather than that, just if you're the person that commented the most, you get that badge. Then that just models behaviors that you don't want in your community, i.e. spamming. Even I'll spam your page to get that badge. Memory planner, it's not really a planner, it's to look back. So I want to look back at last Christmas, last Mother's Day, last Easter. What did we post? What was popular? What worked? What didn't? The last season of this, the last time we launched this. How did it look? What happened? I want to give you a word of warning. Not my warning. It's because of Facebook, okay? When you're in your insights on your page, you don't have to, but I've been stuck before. You click on export data and it says you can export the page. Now the page is your magazine. You can export posts. That's each article on your page or in your magazine, or video, it's obvious, as a spreadsheet. And now it says that you can go back years, right? So this page I think I created in 2015, but it's a fib. Often it gives you data not available at this time, and then it's never available again. So having been caught out with clients, you can only do 500 posts at a time as well. We now have a policy of downloading the spreadsheets every month, mostly every month. Depends. If it's a very high volume site, then you want to do it more often. So I think, for instance, BuzzFeed posts twice an hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they have lots and lots of channels because they have people interested in cooking. So there's BuzzFeed Cooking, people interested in sports. So there's BuzzFeed Sports. See how they've done their psychographic. But you want to download it because if you try and look back at last Mother's Day, it could really suck. The information's not there. Really suck is a technical term. Let me know if you don't understand it. I laugh at my own jokes because nobody else does. What can I say? So definitely download your data as much as possible. So I go back and I look at what flopped, what worked. If we're doing a TV season, then we want to start 30 days before for the MAU, monthly active user. The algorithm looks at the activity of that user with you over the last month. So we start 30 days before the launch of a TV show at the 30th, and then we build up. You don't ever want to belly up to an event and expect the algorithm to pick it up like that. It needs 28 days. If we're doing something for International Women's Day on March the 8th, we start February the 8th. And we use the hashtags and everything we can possibly do to make sure on the day we are the meme, we are the trending topic on that thing. And then your planner. Look, your planner is just, I've been caught where clients have had an offsite and we promised to announce who won a competition and then I couldn't get anybody. So I now, for each client, I put in what's your key dates? Are you having any offsites? Are you shutting down the office for renovations? Are you? And I make sure all those things are in my planner so that I'm not racing around trying to find out who won a competition so we can do the announcement. And we've got probably about 30,000 really angry fans who said, you told us we would know at 5 o'clock. I've made every mistake in the book, some of them several times before I learned. Once I've done that, I then make up a calendar. This is a very basic free one on Google. And over here on the left-hand side, I'll get to the venue with lots of different psychographics in a moment. But on the left-hand side, I create all my different calendars and then I mark them different colors. What I don't want to see is that everything is a promotion. Everything is me media. Click here, do this, read my, where you're not building community, that you're doing broadcast. If you're doing broadcast, it should show up here by being all red. So I often map this out when I do an audit for clients, just to be clear in my own mind if they're too heavily weighted one way or another. So my red here is my promotions. My purple is my content, like Motivational Monday, Job of the Week, Helpful Tips. My engagement calendar is an Ask Me Anything, Fan Photo Friday, a Hump Day question. Wednesday's Hump Day. It's also Mummy Loves Wine Day, in case you've missed that one out. We've got here a few different calendars, I guess. So I use a multitude of tools. I don't mind which tool you use. They're all not very brilliant, to be honest, but anything that you can do to map these out would work. This makes sure that you've got the right content to the right audience and at the right time. If you're dealing with mums with kids, don't post things up at 8:30 on a Monday morning. They're too busy getting the family organized and out the door. But about 3:15, 3:30 in the afternoon, perfectly fine. They're sitting in the car waiting for the kids to come out of school. If I'm dealing with teenagers, I don't post things up on a Saturday morning at 7 a.m. if I'm lucky, they're getting home at that time. I'll post it later in the day. Retirees also have specific behaviors. Learn your behaviors, use your analytics to find those out, write content to the right people at the right time. To come to the question about a venue, do you mind if I stop sharing the screen at the moment? There we go. For a venue that has many different shows that appeal to different audiences, such as the Jim and Sally, what do you do? Well, to me, it's the same as a retail, trying to get people in the store to buy the Sony cameras and the Sony PlayStation games and the Sony microwaves. You have to use a mix of building your own channels, and that could be something as simple as using Creator Studio, which is Facebook and Instagram scheduling and content management tools for multiple pages, and have a few pages in a few groups. And so you might say, oh, we're going to talk to retirees here. We're going to talk to, oh, it's gone. Okay. Oh, answered. Let me go to answered. I just want to just double check something. How else can we address what you said about the algorithm? So if you can't limit your channel to only one segment for audience and shows, and I worked with SBS, which is multiple languages as well, what you want to do is one of two things. You want to use newsfeed targeting, not ad targeting. Newsfeed targeting is number one. And number two is, and if you don't know what that is, you have to let me know in the Q&A so that I'm looking at the Q&A so that I can determine if we should look at that. Newsfeed targeting, and that way you can say this is to go to retirees that live in the eastern suburbs, or this is to go to people who like Tiger Kings on Netflix in the western suburbs. I don't know. Once you sort of figure out your psychographics, that'll be obvious to you. So you can use newsfeed targeting. The second one is create your own channels, but because you can't have 50 million channels. Well, actually you can. I worked with a franchise that had 100,000 Facebook pages, but that might've been a bit excessive. I didn't set them up. They did it. And then we had to fix it. But you might want a number of channels for your core audiences and then use influencers to borrow channels. So as an example, for PlayStation games, you could set up a gaming Facebook page or Instagram or whatever. Well, not LinkedIn, obviously. Or I could go to Kotaku or one of the big gamer blogs and ask them and work out a relationship with them to share things. It also works the other way. When we launched a movie for extreme sports, we work with Red Bull because Red Bull have an extreme sports community on their channels. So there was sort of a joint venture sharing there, and they sponsored the red carpet. And we had been quite creative with how we worked with them. That's just Red Bull. Love you, Red Bull, if you're watching. And you know, they've already done such a lot of work and they know exactly what their audience likes, that I actually listen to them because they've got a very successful channel of dudes that like jumping off of things. So it's important. If people don't have a successful channel, then it's a little bit trickier because I'm relying on them to influence that audience, but they may not be quite on target for that. Is there a way to gather and use this data about your audience without a huge budget to employ a third-party provider? That's the key question, isn't it? Look, Twitter analytics and Facebook analytics will get you so far. Those profiles that I showed you about Quantium are downloadable, and they're actually developed with what their purchasing behaviors are and others are. Gartner, no, it's not Gartner. It's the other one. I can't remember. I'll make sure that we put this up later, but there's another organization like Gartner that have done a lot of psychographic profiling. At the end of the day, anybody who's been working with that venue or that studio will kind of instinctively know the audience and start working with them. I do a lot of research using free monitoring tools. So as an example, for 50 Shades of Grey, the movie, don't shoot me, the community, it was pretty easy to see very quickly who the community were and what kind of profiles they had and what they were passionate about. And then from that also, and now I'm moving into campaigns, which is a different section, but pull out from that things like they were all debating amongst themselves, who is Mr. Grey going to be, who is the actor, and then choosing their favourite actors. So we were able to develop a content calendar leading up to the announcement of who Mr. Grey would be, of which one would you prefer, you know, this actor or this actor, or, you know, doing different kind of interesting things to try and getting them really revved up about 50 Shades of Grey. And then they didn't like our choice, but whatever. So monitoring dashboards, that would be a key thing, Andy, that I would suggest. Ian, do you have any suggestions on how one might engage with First Nation peoples in the digital space? Yeah, I've worked quite a lot in this space, and also with Screen Australia. And most of my research, the Indigenous and Torres Strait Islanders often use more offbeat platforms. So there's, I can't think of it at the moment, but there's a platform out of Brazil that a lot of the New York gangster rappers use. And then the youth community got onto that. It's kind of like TikTok, but for rappers kind of thing. And then they got their mums on it. So there's quite a substantial, you know, for people who reject Facebook, there are other options that, and what happens with influencers is you only need a small number to move on there, and then they go out and sign everybody else up. Hey, grandma, you'd like this platform? No, I don't think grandma would, but she's on there because that's where she gets to talk to the grandkids. So there's those sort of behaviors. How does one expand one's audience in involving wider psychographic groups? Absolutely working with influencers. Your influencer can be an industry organization. So I don't always want to build my own channels. I sometimes want to reach out. So like I mentioned, with working with fashion Instagrammers, it was important to make a list and then go and approach them. For another movie, we had a big red carpet event with major stars attending and a couple of possible issues once people saw the movie, what they might consider an issue. So we created a list of key influencers of about 30 around Australia and New Zealand, I think. But we also made sure we made a list next to their names and all their profiles with their voice. Were they snarky, bitchy, sassy? Were they kind, helpful, angelic, inspirational? Were they engineer, teacher, sort of knowledge transfer based, so that when we invited them in, we knew what kind of like what you do with journalists, I guess, how they would take our content and then present it to their audience. A little bit of figuring things out there. I have a business, service or product. I create stories for attention for psychographic audience. Do I develop a separate funnel entry from each story focused on different psychographics? The audience will require the same product, however, I market it through different funnels. William Price, that's exactly it. So for instance, with Les Miserables, there was the fashion element, creating fashion around images and modeling, photos and videos to present to the fashion community on Instagram, which was very different than the events that were run for musical theatre. So there was a whole bunch of stuff that was done, bringing musical theatre and people who love musical theatre, people who love light opera in. So it's the same asset, it's the same product or service, whatever you want to call it, event and artwork, and then bringing people into it in different ways. In the same way that you would create different things for a museum or an art gallery, different kinds of events for different kinds of attendees, you have to do the same thing. What you can't do is smash everyone and all the content on the one channel.
Laurel, thank you so much. When we were having a chat before we started the session, Laurel said she was available for the next 8 hours and could probably talk for the next 8 hours. And I actually now know that that is completely true, and we would all be far richer for it. So thank you so much. That was very, very generous. And I think we have many questions. I didn't even get to my question, which was, about psychographics and COVID and how the impact, and will people's behaviours change, and how are the algorithms and the platforms responding to that? But I know you can't answer that now, but maybe.
No, and you're absolutely right, because it takes 30 days to shift the Titanic for the algorithm to shift. So it has to monitor the behaviours for 30 days. And our behaviours are changing every 30 days. We're not even picking up our phone and checking it on the way to work at the moment. So I'm sure the algorithm is just as befuddled as the rest of us.
That's what and even quicker than 30 days. Like, I think even weekly, I think at the moment things are changing so rapidly. I would probably throw that in there as well. Thank you so much again. I know that this has probably been one of the most, so many positive comments have come through the channels today. So thank you for one of the most intense and rich and gifting sessions that we have had. So thank you very, very much. Thank you, David and Alyssa, for joining us once more as our Auslan interpreters today. Thank you for our wonderful audience for joining once again in the second last Think Inside the Square. It's very sad that this series is coming to an end. We've become quite used to it. Thank you, Renee, and the team in the back as well. If you have, yes, we will be publishing things. I just saw a quick message flash through very quickly on chat then. Yes, we will be putting up, publishing as much of this as we possibly can afterwards, and it will be there to rewatch on the stream as well. If you have any questions for our last session, don't forget to send it through to digitalsolutions@australiacouncil.gov.au. We're a few minutes over time. I'm really sorry, but see you all again next week, and thank you again, Laurel. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.